Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon. Welcome to the November 10th Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee. And because it's so cloudy today, I thought it was still morning, but it is afternoon. I see the clock kind of says that. And so Taylor, do we have any public comment? Okay. Any proposed changes to the agenda that anybody had? Okay. And I'll just note we have 4 legislators here, and hopefully the other member, Veronica Pillar, will be on their way soon. And so next we have minutes approval. Those are on packet page 2. Would anybody like to move the minutes? These are from October 14th. Rich moves, Amanda seconds. Any discussion? Okay, thank you for doing those. All those in favor of passing the minutes, approving the minutes? Okay, that's everybody's in favor. Thank you. That passes unanimously. And next we're going to move to appointments. So we have 2 sets of appointments. We have one set that's called the Advisory Board appointment, and we have from the Water Resources Council, we have Cyril, otherwise known as Skip Parr, from the Environmental Health Representative. That term expires December 31st, 2026. And then we have a set of reappointments for 2026, and they are also for the Water Resources Council. And pardon me if I get any of these names pronounced incorrectly. And Bastoni, at-large member, expires December 31st, 2028. And that's the same date for all the rest of them too. The next one is Cynthia Brock, the Recreation Representative. Andrew Murphy, the Water Purveyor Representative. John Negley from Soil and Water Conservation District. And Brett Hayhurst, at-large member. And last, Becky Sims, the Municipal Government Representative. Would someone like to move all of those? Moved by Rich, seconded by Amanda. Usually if we have any discussion, we would go into executive session. Amanda.
One of the prospective members is here. Maybe she would like to give a speech.
Beforehand or after acceptance?
Both. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you, but I'm happy to pass on that offer.
Okay, we hear a declination on that. Okay. All right, all those in favor of passing the appointments? Okay, that's unanimous again. Thank you for everybody for volunteering for this organization. The Water Resources Council is very important. They do a lot of great work, and we have reports from them at least yearly. Let's see, so next we're going to go to the County Administrator's report. We have Norma Jane here, Deputy County Administrator. Norma, do you have anything for us today?
I do not. I'm happy to answer any questions if folks have them, but I have no report today.
Anybody have any questions about Norma's not report?
Yes.
Or anything else she didn't report about?
Would you like to give a speech on whatever?
No, I'll follow Cynthia.
Okay, let's see here. I think we'll see if Abigail ever comes to the table then after that. Let's see. So next we're going to move right on to the chair's report. And I have 2 things. So we're going to get to the resolution in a second. But I just wanted to see if folks were interested in, our next meeting is December 8th, and so I'll try and prepare a recap of some of the things we've done this year and maybe suggesting things that the committee and whatever its formation it is and next year suggest that they could work on or continue to work on. But I was wondering if folks would be interested in meeting here at noon, whoever wanted to, on December 8th, right before the meeting, and I would bring pizza, and we could have a little dish to pass too if people wanted to bring something else. That's for our members, any departments, anybody that usually comes to this meeting, any organizations. Would folks be interested in that?
Sure. Peak party.
Okay, that'll be the peak party of the year.
Party of the year.
Okay. Peak pizza party. If you say that 3 times really fast.
Pre-meeting peak.
Okay, let's stop there. Okay, the peak pizza, okay. So that'll be at noon, and thanks, Taylor. Hopefully you can join us and the other clerks. And thanks for finding out that this room is available for that. So that'll be noon on the 8th. And so we have a resolution. So let's get this on the floor first, and then we'll begin our discussion and presentation a little bit, or at least talk about it. This is a resolution on packet page 10, and this is a resolution supporting New York State action to address biosolids, urging a case for caution with regard to the land application of biosolids, and a proposal to establish an interdepartmental working group in Tompkins County. Easy for me to say. It was easier to say the peak pizza party. ID 13687. Would someone like to move that? Moved by Amanda, seconded by Rich. Okay. And we have Kate Darfler here, the chair of our Environmental Management Council. And Cynthia, are you here to talk about that too, right? So we have Cynthia Brock, who's the chair of the Water Resources. I thought maybe you weren't chair anymore. Okay. Chair of the Water Resources Council here too, also to talk about this, because they've been discussing this for quite a while also. So again, that's packet page 10. There's also the EMC resolution on packet page 15. So Kate, would you like to tell us about how this has been going?
Absolutely. This is not my first time coming to you guys to talk about this, but this is hopefully my last time coming to talk to you about this. So I wanted to talk you through a little bit about the different versions of resolutions that you've probably seen coming around. The first, which isn't included, which I'll just talk about, is TCOG passed a resolution, a unanimous resolution for action on biosolids. And theirs was a very broad-based resolution that I didn't even know they were taking up, honestly. So that was, it's very different than what we have decided to do. We've taken a very targeted approach on some specific pieces, whereas they were just looking for a broad-based moratorium on the spreading of biosolids. So then, as I believe I mentioned last time, the EMC has been working with the Water Resources Council, with the Ag and Farmland Protection Board, with Leo and his team, with Mari, who's on here hopefully as well, along with people from Cornell, and I'm like trying to blank. I'm like, there has been, so we reached out to Doug Barnes at Whole Health. It was like 16 different people from different organizations that we brought together to try to figure out what is the best approach for Tompkins County to take. And I think when I came and spoke to you last time, I was saying how we realized that Tompkins County didn't really have a mechanism to put together this moratorium. Like, we don't have a say in the permitting process for any land applications. And so that kind of keeps sending us back to, what do we have a say in? And one is that we have a say to tell the state that we really need help with this, and that this is really falls under their purview. There is legislation at the state level. One version passed the Senate, and another version did not pass the Assembly last year, but my understanding is that we'll go back to committee, and they will revise it, and they will be pushing it again in this upcoming session. And then part of what we have done, and this is evolving as we've been learning through this whole process, is some of the versions of the bill at the state level have cut out provisions that we feel are really crucially important to the success of a bill at this level, a moratorium specifically. And that is why you'll see some differences in the versions of resolutions coming around. The EMC we understood that we were looking for pieces of it, but realized that the versions of the bills that we were looking at didn't include them. And those provisions are laid out in, I guess it's basically one of the whereas statements. It starts on line 23. those provisions are laid out as the 5-year moratorium on the Class A and B, expanding the testing, but also specifically creating the PFAS support fund to assist farmers and landowners for the impact, and then also making sure there's a statewide task force to bring together leaders, because on the versions that have been being passed, that stuff got pulled out, and that felt like the real key pieces that were needed to make this successful. The other pieces that you might see as differences between different versions of the resolution is Leo and Maury worked on what can we do in Tompkins County, where might there be mechanisms, and I'll let you guys speak to that part. But I'm happy to answer any questions, and I don't know if you want to talk about the Water Resources Council aspect of it as well.
So the Water Resources Council received the resolution that the EMC had passed. And I do want to state before we go too far into this, I think when you are talking about water treatment or wastewater treatment, when you're talking about pollution just across the board, for each dollar spent at the source of pollution to keep the pollution from going into soil, water, and air, there will probably be exponential numbers of dollars that would be required to clean that pollution up once it gets into soil, water, and air. And really the best approach is to keep these contaminants from entering into our water and wastewater in the first place, versus, in my view, treating it at the end. So keeping that in mind, just how difficult that is, and keeping in mind also that wastewater treatment is essential for every community. It is required as a component of keeping and protecting our environment. We need to make sure these processes run effectively and efficiently. So just wanting to put that out. So when we as a committee started looking at this, we also received comments that had been shared by the New York Water Environment Association. This is Association of Wastewater and Water Treatment Purveyors across New York State. And there were a lot of concerns about the impacts of a possible moratorium. First of all, biosolids is a natural part of wastewater treatment. If you require it to be landfilled, I think there needs to be time spent thinking about what is the capacity of landfills to receive these biosolids. Biosolids are mostly water, so it would require other amendments to be added into it to protect the landfill from receiving a very slushy material and not jeopardizing the integrity of the landfill. You also have to think about the availability of trucking facilities to truck those biosolids out in a timely fashion. So you're then, as a wastewater purveyor, what are you doing with these biosolids? And are you going to be able to have access to trucks to move it? If you don't have access to trucks, where do you store it until you do get those trucks, right? So if you have wastewater purveyors across the state who are not trucking it to landfills, what is the burden that you're putting on them? What are the costs that will go up with landfilling? What will the costs that will go up with trucking? What concerns do you have if you have now added costs to all the municipalities with wastewater purveyors or truckers who are trying to move this as quickly as possible? One of our representatives from the Ag Committee is like, we need legislation to protect against truckers from just dumping them into a manure lagoon, right? Because now then they can save the cost of tipping fees, right? So other regulations to protect against inappropriate activities, because there's going to be a desperation of trying to get this material somewhere and those truckers. So thinking about those carry-on costs that will be borne by wastewater purveyors. Also thinking about the burdens that you're placing on small wastewater purveyors, think Trumansburg, Ulysses, right, that don't really have large-scale industrial users. They're mainly families. So, you know, what are the burdens that you're placing now on small municipalities all throughout New York State? So when the Water Resources Council started discussing the resolution that the EMC passed, they made modifications, first and foremost, to reaffirm that there should be the inclusion of the biosolids task force, which would come together and analyze what do we do with these biosolids, how should they be treated, as well as the farmer protection component. But they also recommended that the moratorium only be placed on new permits. So it's not actually a moratorium on land spreading, it's just a moratorium on spreading it into places that had not previously received the biosolids. Again, not wanting to create this incredible shock to the system without fully understanding those carry-on repercussions. There was also a recommendation that this be applied to wastewater purveyors of 10 MGD, 10 million gallons per day, to protect or allow the smaller purveyors, again, think Trumansburg and so on, from being subject to this moratorium. And I say that's not to say that we don't value the intent of the moratorium. We do recognize that PFAS is a growing concern. There is so much research that needs to be done. PFAS is ubiquitous in everything. It is in the rain and snow that is falling on our lands right now. The background levels of PFAS in everything around us is something that really we need to know more about. And so just recognizing this across the board concern and wanting to support that is important, but we also want to do so in a way that can be managed and protect against inadvertently expanding the problems into ways that weren't considered before the moratorium went into effect. These are the things that I know that Maine is dealing with now. They do not have the capacities in their landfills. They are shipping their biosolids to Canada because they don't have capacity in their landfills. They were facing collapse of landfills because of the high water content in biosolids. So Maine, we're looking at Maine and trying to learn from the challenges that they're facing because of their moratorium.
Thank you, Cynthia. And before we open it up to questions, Leo, there was a part in here, I was hoping Maury was going to be here, but there was a part in here in the...
Maury's online.
Oh, Maury is here? Oh, okay, great. So I'll ask this of Maury and Leo. There's in the second to last resolved for our resolution, it says that the Tompkins County Legislature shall establish an interdepartmental working group. And I'm just wondering if you wanted to talk about that or anything else about the resolution for either of you.
Yeah, I would say, Maury, if you want to go ahead and start, and if I need to add anything, I can.
Well, that would be fine. The next to last whereas clause addresses the issue of what we can do locally, which largely consists of identifying and quantifying the problem in various ways. So what this portion of the resolution does is indicate that the county will establish a working group to really dig into the subject matter and discuss and study various areas of the problem and quantify them so that we have a working knowledge on this end that can either complement what the state is doing, or if it turns out that the state does not act and we're back to pursuing something locally, we know much more about what we're dealing with.
Thank you. And do you think that's, we need to delineate anything in the resolution about which departments, or do you think it's okay to leave it like that for now?
I would leave it general is my suggestion, so that we maximize the flexibility rather than locking us into any particular format for it.
Okay, but I think for now, I think your office, Maury, and then Leo, you'll be looking at this. Is that correct, or
Yeah,
is there other departments?
Well, I think we need to kind of determine what departments might be able to, assist us in different ways. I think where I see it from our department is really more on maybe attached to our Chapter 140 solid waste laws, where we'll pursue some mechanisms to license transporters possibly of biosolids or biosolids. Also, by going through that mechanism of licensing them, they would have responsibilities just like a solid waste collector would have as far as reporting to us the volumes that were transported and the destination facilities. So at least at that point, we would hope to have good records of, like Maury said, quantities and disposal sites. And then, we need to fill in some other gaps as well. And I think those departments have to be kind of determined who can assist us with some of those other gaps.
Okay, so we'll work on that. And so now I'll open it up to any questions, comments from anyone? Rich?
Yeah, I will support the resolution. I did have a question. Does anybody have a sense of how the interdepartmental working group would be constituted? Who would be on that?
Rich, just to follow up on that, because Annie had raised that as well, I think at minimum, we would be looking at recycling and materials management, sustainability. They have been involved in developing this. My office, I think anyone, interested from this committee would make sense. Those are kind of the basics, but, it could, reach out to whatever expertise is appropriate. I think part of drafting it generally is because just like the scope of the problem needs to be defined, we need to define the scope of who should be looking at it in depth, and make sure that that's as inclusive as we could be while still, being workable.
I would suggest reaching out to either Ithaca College or Cornell, seeing if their chemistry departments or environmental science departments might have some expertise we could borrow.
Amanda?
Thank you. This is, I'm sure, a lot of work, and it's not like this is your only job in life, but you guys have done a lot. So yeah, I'll support it. My question is, so there is legislation at the state level. Do you know if other counties are trying to address this in New York, or are we the first ones?
We are not the first.
Okay.
We are the first that I know of to frame it this way. Most others have been passing, some of them have been passing their own moratoriums on biosolid spreading. When we looked at that closer, we weren't sure how they were doing that, honestly.
Right.
And there was a couple of different counties doing it. But that's why we took a different approach.
Right. No, that's great. And I think this makes sense. And, you always wonder about these resolutions that urge the state to do something, but, you're bringing light to this topic, and, maybe other counties will be paying attention as well and say, if we can't just pass a moratorium, what do we do? So you guys are creating that other opportunity, so.
Yeah, and I think that's what we kind of came around to, was really wanting to call out the provisions that had gotten pulled during the state negotiation process, and to make sure that when they revise this and they put it out again, they see that there is community support for specifically these provisions. We're not just saying broadly, we support a moratorium. We support a moratorium with these provisions.
Right.
With some teeth to it.
Exactly,
Right.
and support to the communities that are going to be hit by it. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Greg?
Several questions. First, why is it we're only concerned with land applied when there's controlled discharges that go into our water resources around us? Is that something to consider? What is it, a controlled discharge or something when they reach capacity and they, like I know Ithaca, don't they send waste out into the lake?
Cynthia?
So I'm not a subject matter expert, but yes, we do discharge treated wastewater into the lake. I believe the current understanding is most of the PFAS actually gets bound up in the biosolids. I do believe that our treated wastewater is far below the standards for drinking water, or I should say guidelines. I'm not sure if the standards are actually adopted yet.
Far below or above? Better than or worse than?
Better than, right?
Yeah.
So if the rates are far below what the standards would say is the maximum.
And do we ever discharge solids with an overflow discharge?
I do believe all wastewater plants do have the capacity to directly discharge if they fear that the facility is at risk of being under catastrophic situations. I don't know that, for example, Ithaca area has done so in the last several decades. It's just something you try very, very much to avoid doing that. But that's usually going to be the active, absolute last resort for fear of destroying your wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, and then I guess my last question, thank you for that. I also am no subject matter expert, so trying to get up to speed. What authority do we have as a county, and what role do we have to be monitoring this? Obviously, we don't have a wastewater treatment facility ourselves. We're not in that business. Do we currently regulate those, or those are all regulated at a state level? So what obligation would the interdepartmental working group to ascertain and monitor through surveys and by leveraging current regulations the volumes of biosolids generated by publicly owned treatment works in Tompkins County? Are we just asking people out of the kindness of their heart to participate, or for us to go pull out data that they're already reporting to some other agency? I guess what I'm cautious of doing is creating work for our staff that's not in our purview, because if we don't have any bite, we're just barking up the state tree at this point. So I'm just curious what type of real mechanisms we have in this type of interdepartmental working group.
I'll just add a little bit that we don't, as far as we have been able to find out from the wastewater treatment plants that operate in the county, none of them are currently sending out any biosolids to be spread on land. So if I'm correct, so one mechanism of monitoring this would be, say, for asking how much goes out, whether it's through the truckers, whether it's through the treatment centers, but if there was licensure for the biosolids, that would be a mechanism to hopefully make sure that they're not being spread illegally, but that would also give us a reporting of how many tons are going out, where are they going, and so are they going to be spread? Are they going to landfills? So is that part of that, Leo and Maury, that you're looking at?
Yeah, we have 4 articles in our Chapter 140 laws. One of those articles is hauler licensing. So remember, this is collectors of solid waste. All right. So when you collect waste generated from within Tompkins County as a garbage collector, you have to be licensed. So we license them, we issue them a license number, and then they are required annually to report to us volumes that they collect and dispose of, again, that's generated from within the county. So one of the things that make it difficult for us to understand those volumes, we have the Recycling Solid Waste Center, but not all the garbage that's collected within the county comes to the Recycling Solid Waste Center. So anything that comes to our center, we know what we're shipping out. So haulers will still report that to us, and we can verify that. But if you have a hauler, actually some of the larger companies, Waste Management comes out of Syracuse, and there's some local facilities, collectors here, like Casella doesn't bring waste to our Recycling Solid Waste Center. So they're shipping it right landfill direct. So by that licensing mechanism, they're required to tell us the volumes in tons and the destination facilities that it went to. Even further, as far as tracking goes, those landfills are required by the state to report to the state the volumes that they're receiving. So for instance, I report to the state what leaves our facility. If our volumes that go to Chemung County, for instance, doesn't match up with Chemung County's data numbers that they're receiving, we get a call. And then between Chemung and us, we reconcile and straighten the numbers out. So they do have to make sense. So that's the scenario with how solid waste as far as garbage goes. That's what I believe, and I don't know if Maury's given much thought to it, but we kind of believe that we could require the biosolid haulers to be licensed, and then have that mechanism for them to report to us, very similar to a waste collector, licensed hauler in the county.
So currently we have no wastewater treatment facilities that are land applying their biosolid waste in Tompkins County.
Right.
Yeah, as far as we know, yeah. And that was in 2003 you collected that data?
So our draft solid waste, well, it's not a draft solid waste plan anymore. It was for about 3 years. our solid waste management plan, when we put that together, we started that in 2022, and 2022 we reached out to the I believe there's 7 plants within the county. We reached out to them at that time, and were told that there was no biosolids being land applied, and that was data going back to 2021. So outside of that, they don't have any responsibility to report to our department, Recycling Materials Management. So outside of any other data, I'm not aware of.
So I guess my last 2 comments, I guess. This is heavily regulated by the New York State DEC, right? Wastewater and waste hauling of biosolids. Are we creating a solution to a problem that doesn't exist? If we don't have land appliers in Tompkins County, why are we occupying staff resource to formulate a working group to address an issue that's not an issue?
We don't have them right now, and we hope to not have them. Cynthia, and then Rich.
Yes, you're correct. Class B permits of land spreading of wastewater biosolids are regulated by the DEC. There are none in Tompkins County, at least since 2019.
And that was confirmed from the DEC.
Yep. There are no permits for the land spreading of septage, so say porta potties in Tompkins County. And in Tompkins County, we do not mix biosolids with wood chips to make compost, right? Now, one of the things that Kate and I spent a lot of time really thinking about is, well, look, until we knew about PFAS, it really was advised to land apply biosolids and find beneficial uses, to take these nutrients and put them back into the soil, right? It was really what we wanted. And the DEC allowed it and regulated, the EPA allows and regulates it. The thing is once it is treated to get to a certain level, it's no longer regulated. So then the question then became, to Rich's point, because he had mentioned this specifically, if you go to Lowe's and you buy a bag of compost, are there biosolid wastes in there that have not been specifically identified or treated for PFAS? It was treated to address biological vectors and for heavy metals, but it wasn't treated for PFAS. And so looking at what might be coming, because a lot of our surrounding counties mix their biosolids with wood chips at their solid waste facilities, and they give it away for free, and they call it compost, right? And it's technically organic, not in the way that you think of organic food, but it's an organic product, sure. Right? And because of that difference in labeling, you buy this organic compost. So then we started having this discussion. So what is out there in the community termed compost that is actually coming from biosolids? Is it being shipped in as a commercial product or just land applied, on farms? People think that they're doing the right thing. They're bringing it from out of county because, so thinking about so where is this? Where is it being used? Are we inadvertently expanding this problem because we're not thinking 2 or 3 steps down the line? And I do think that is a larger issue that, again, it's ubiquitous. It's in everything in ways that we just don't really have a grasp on. So I think that was also part of really understanding and educating the community in the process of being careful about this. But Casella, for example, does sell a compost product that probably has wastewater biosolids in it, and it's sold commercially.
Thank you for the details.
Rich?
Yeah, I think Cynthia largely got it. What I would add is, yeah, we don't know. And if you're wrong about it, it's too late. So that's why I think it makes sense to have the interdepartmental working group look at it. But I think you raise a good point, Greg, that we shouldn't just have this group just go on forever. I think it should report back to this committee and determine, is there an answer to this? Is there a problem or is there not a problem? And if there isn't, go do something else. But I think it is worth us learning that question, but maybe 6 months, this committee should ask for an update. I picked that random timeline, but at some fairly close period to say, do we have an answer? Yeah.
Can I add one more point here is, so we did reach out to some Cornell professors that specialize in biosolids and soil, and they are actually expanding their work in this currently. They are hiring a person who's starting in January to lead their PFAS biosolids soil initiative, who will be kicking off a lot of this. So we are at the forefront and the cusp of a lot of work on this subject and on this topic, and I think that people from that group could be valuable to this interdepartmental working group that come in as advisors on that. So just recommend them as well.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or discussion before we vote on this? Sure, Leo and Cynthia?
Yeah, I just thought I'd make mention as far.
And Maury,
Yeah, I just thought I'd make mention as far as the Class B and at least tracking those volumes in destination facilities would be what I would call a tuck-in kind of a project into what we're already doing. It's the Class A biosolids that I would say is going to probably require a lot of discussion to really understand where to start. So, 6 months, yes, on a Class B report, coming back. The Class A, I mean, that's going to be more involved. Yeah.
Thank you. Cynthia, and then Maury.
I would just make a suggestion of adding on packet page 11, row 25. Current revisions have removed important provisions like testing provision, farmer support fund, and I would like to add biosolids task force. Again, this is a task force which is going to study how is the best and safest way to treat biosolids. So I think including that word there is important.
So would that be, let's see, so on line 25, important provisions like testing, provision, farmer support fund, and would it be the biosolid task force?
Biosolids
So just
task
adding
force.
the word in biosolids?
Yeah, and as I read that out loud, I think there's probably supposed to be a comma after testing provisions. Farmer support fund, comma, and the biosolids task force.
I find those changes friendly. I can't remember if I moved or seconded.
Either way, but I think one of us still has to
Yeah, I'm not
make
on
that. She can't. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I can't, did I move it? Yes. Okay, so then I would just make that change to add packet page 11, line
25.
25, the biosolids task force, and
Commas after testing provision
provision
and farmer support fund.
Yeah.
Okay. Any objections to that being changed from the committee? Okay, so that's changed. Anything, Maury?
Yeah, I would add to that edit, and the other thing I was going to add was just another edit as well. Provisions like, in the same line, provisions like a capital T testing provision, comma, because we have farmer support fund also with the F in farmer capitalized. Then put a comma after fund and the capital T task force.
Friendly.
I'm sort of not quite understanding. Can you say that
Yeah,
again?
can you say those again, Maury?
Or like important provisions like either the or a testing provision. So either like a testing provision and put testing in capital T.
Okay.
Then comma after provision. Then you have capital F farmer support fund,
Yep.
comma, and the capital T task force.
Okay.
Biosolid.
And the biosolid
Yeah,
task
so-
force.
Capital B biosolids.
Yeah, so capitalizing to clarify that those are specific entities. Yeah, okay.
Right.
So I would move that as an edit.
Okay, then I have one more on packet page 12, line 4. Through the Biosolids Management Act, which contains, and then to provide some more flexibility on this, which contains, comma, at minimum, because these are the basics that we want the state to put in, which contains, comma, at minimum, colon, then 5-year moratorium on sewage sludge spreading, testing provision, farmer support fund, and tax.
And a biosolid task force.
Biosolids, yeah, so make the capital B in biosolids the capital instead of task force. So it
Okay.
would be contains, colon,
Yep, at minimum, semicolon,
contains, comma, at minimum, colon, a 5-year moratorium on sewage sludge spreading, comma, a testing provision, comma, farmer support fund, comma, and a task force.
And a biosolid task
biosolids
force.
task force.
Sorry about
Yes.
that.
That's okay.
Okay, so Taylor got it. I can make those as an official motion
Okay, thank you.
if there's a
Any objection?
objection, no.
I said friendly.
And it's friendly. Well, I just want to make sure that everybody, no one objected to that. Okay. Anything else? Greg?
Yeah, I think I guess 2 follow-up questions. I think I would be comfortable if there was a time horizon on this to report back. And I am just curious, who is going to be the chief convener and responsible for the interdepartmental working group? Because a ship without a captain is,
Lost at sea.
That would seem to
I
have
would
faulted
suggest the
county
chair-
administration to decide.
Oh, I was going to say the chair of peak to get it going, but
Chair of HED.
no.
But
I mean, it's a
Between now and
working,
December.
we have working groups, you know, from the chair of the legislature puts in motion, you know, establishes and puts in motion. So I would think this, but because
is
it's
this a working group
because
of-
it's interdepartmental, you're wondering if it should come from
Is this a
admin-
working group of the legislature or just a working group of departments? Not to split hairs, but
that was my earlier question, and it's not legislature, it's departments.
so the chair of peak wouldn't, right?
Amanda, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm sort of thinking it's different, but when we were talking about the environmentally preferred procurement, the staff made a working group to look at those policies, and this is different because that was a policy, and this is more of like something outside of, you know, our policies. But I, as a legislator, was on that group, but I wasn't leading it. So, and I think it would be hard to say that it should be the chair of peak because,
I was just thinking to get it going.
but who knows who the chair of peak is going to be,
Right.
and, you know, so, yeah.
Norma, what do you think?
I think that maybe Leo and I have a meeting scheduled. To let us work through that, and we will send you a list of who's going to be on the group.
From which
Who's leading it?
departments?
Yeah.
Okay. And
That
then we can consider whether, what additional information we want to add to this resolution, and we could amend it at the legislature meeting. How's that? Thanks for bringing that up, Greg. Anything else? Amanda?
Just, I'm not sure if this is going to pass unanimously, but I think it should not be on the consent agenda. I think
Okay.
if the chair would agree to that, but.
Okay, duly noted. Anything else? Okay, I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor? Does pass unanimously. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to Kate and Cynthia for all your work on this and for coming today. And you're more than welcome. We hope that you'll join us. This will be on the legislature meeting. Let's see. So today's, I don't even know what day it is. Today's the 10th or
18th?
something? So the next meeting is the
18th?
18th, so it'll be on the legislature meeting? November 18th at 5:30.
My plan is to be there.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Cynthia, if you can make it. Thank
It
you.
won't be right at 5:30, so if you need to buy yourself a few minutes.
It won't be? Okay.
In person or
Remote.
remote, you're right. It'll be
If you
somewhere,
give
but
me a guide onto what timing that helps.
Okay.
Text me and let me know.
we will.
After 6.
Okay.
Thank you so much. A lot of work went into get us to where we are, to find some leverage with the state, hopefully, and thank you for communications also with Anna Kellis's office, and eventually finding out what leverage we do have for at least tracking this. So thank you, everybody. And also Maury and Leo, thank you also. And so next we have up from the Department of Planning and Sustainability, we have Abigail Connor here, our environmental planner. And Abigail, you don't have to make a speech, no matter what Amanda says. That's optional. If you want to, go ahead. And you have, this is on packet page 20, you have a report, Climate Adaptation and Resiliency Work in the Department of Sustainability, ID 13658. So welcome, Abigail.
Thank you. No speech. Just a
speech?
presentation.
Just a presentation.
You get points for that.
Kind of
With pictures,
similar.
a speech with pictures.
Yeah.
So if you guys recall, I came to you with Darby last month and kind of walked through the natural resources and agricultural work that was being done in the department. And this month, giving you just an overview of what's happening with the work that I'm doing with climate adaptation and resiliency in the department. So these are the main items on my work program this year that relate to adaptation and resiliency. I won't go into all of them in depth. The ones in italics, I will go in a little in depth on for you all, just to give you a bit of an update, since those are where the largest amount of work has happened, and then I'll touch on the other three at the end here. So one of the major things within this is that the county maintains, our department maintains a hazard mitigation plan. So that's all jurisdictions within the county. Municipalities could, if they wanted to, have their own hazard mitigation plan. We take on that work for them, and they each have an annex in our current plan. I did mean to bring up to show you our printed version of that plan is 2 binders this size. That current plan expires in October of 2026. We've been in communication with the state, and they have directed us to the funding that we should apply for, which we have done. We are just waiting to hear from them, which they're waiting to hear from FEMA. So it will be some time, but we are in that process, and that's there. So that hazard mitigation plan allows the county and municipalities to be eligible for state and federal funding. Typically comes forth in flood mitigation assistance, the FMA program, and the hazard mitigation planning grant, which doesn't always, depends on how that's released if you need a hazard mitigation plan for that funding. But it does allow them to be, the other program it had been eligible for was the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities. That program is currently not being funded, but who knows. The exciting thing that we're hoping for in this update is that the state has just released, and you'll see the screenshot there on the slide, what they're calling Mitigate New York at the state level. So this is a way that they're displaying the state's hazard mitigation plan. And the reason this is super exciting for us is typically we use the funds that are provided to us from the state to update our hazard mitigation plan, to pay a contractor to find the data about our hazards. This release from New York State allows us to immediately receive the data. So now we can work on a larger plan and not just focus on accessing the data. The data will now be released directly to the county. I mean, we could access it right now. But so that will open up opportunities for more planning, which we are excited about, which I'll touch on in just a second. We will also have the opportunity for our plan to no longer be those 2 binders, but to also be in this web-based form, which I do think will make it much more accessible and just kind of easier for folks to get into. Right now it's PDFs. I mean, we have the 2 binders, but it's PDFs on our website. Within that, I've been convening for the last 3.5 years a quarterly meeting of our municipal partners who have dubbed themselves the Tompkins County Hazard Mitigation Partners. It's representatives from across the county. This was our last meeting. You can see how happy they are to be there. And there's representation there from 9 of our 16 municipalities. We have seen probably 14 over the course of these meetings, folks engaged of the municipalities. Wow. And it's been a really cool opportunity for progress and collaboration. And I think the most exciting thing is, I think sometimes with these plans and these updates, you talk about it when you make it and when you develop it, and then again when you have to update it again. And it's been exciting for them to feel really, I think, involved in this kind of living document right now and be really excited and engaged for the future of what this can look like. So they are using that time for ongoing discussion and brainstorming, looking at their actions in that plan. So those actions are what they can use, what they can get funding for. And they've been using that space to kind of brainstorm what they'd like those new actions to look like, what's working for some places and not for others. But they are briefed, ready, and quite excited.
And they have parts of or sections of plans for their municipality.
Yeah, so
separate, and that helps them that in addition helps, well, that actually, they're having their separate plan for their municipality helps them to get funds, right?
Yes. So our current, the 2021 hazard mitigation plan for Tompkins County has an overall plan that looks at the county as a whole, and then there's an annex for each municipality, which includes actions for those municipalities.
Thank you.
They did note that if there are any royalties from this photo, they would like a piece of those. They asked that. That was my condition of sharing the picture.
Okay, we'll let them know. We'll form a task force to
I told them
track that.
I would be sure to follow up.
We could follow up on that.
The other big piece that I know I did report to you all on a few times over the course of the year, but a big piece was that FEMA flood map education and outreach. As you know, we got those maps final the middle of June this year. So I had brought to you all those updates that I had made to our county's flood information webpage. We've seen some great use of that, and we know folks are accessing information there, and we continue to check and monitor that form at the bottom of the page, seeing if folks have things that are missing that they'd like to know about. And we answer calls on and off when people call, and we can direct them where they need to go or do our best to answer their questions. We also collaborated with the city and the town of Ithaca to host a flood information, public information session, and that's the flyer there. It was really quite well attended. That was July 15th. It was hybrid, and I think the city let us know that there was overall about 100 participants, and worked with a insurance agent who really walked through the insurance process, and it was great. It's recorded, so I actually could drop that probably in the chat just after this. And then the other thing that's kind of been forming here for a little bit of time, so when FEMA released the maps and the maps became final, they released the data that makes up the image you see on the map, but they also released other, what they call flood risk products. And so those products are really detailed, heavy data, very, like, data size, very large. So those will help our municipalities, that data set will help our municipalities when they're doing floodplain permits to very precisely, in a digital format, make their determinations that they need to make. So right now, typically, they go to the issued panels from FEMA, and they do what they need to do to figure out what's happening. This release is the first in New York State of these flood risk products, which allows them to be digital. The main issue, though, is, as I said, they're very large, and so hosting that digitally, like in the cloud, is very expensive. So I worked with the city and our county GIS staff to kind of figure out what that looked like. It was an extreme cost. I also contacted the DEC to ask if the DEC, since it's managed by the state, was willing to host it. They contacted FEMA, and FEMA did notify us that they are working to make that happen, and they will be hosting it. They haven't hosted it for us yet, but that does mean it alleviates the cost for our municipalities and the county as well.
What is a floodplain permit?
A floodplain permit is kind of like your building permit, but what you need to get when you are building in a floodplain.
Oh, is that an additional permit? Mm-hmm. Okay, that rings a bell. Okay, thank you.
That's that on the FEMA flood maps. And just to touch on these last three items here briefly. So the debris management plan is something that I've been working on for some time. It was one of the 5 pieces of our resiliency and recovery plan that was finalized in 2022. Leo and I have met about this. I've met about this with emergency response. Right now, what we had received from the consultant through that project is a little bit vague. We're not 100% sure from FEMA how detailed it needs to be for it to be submitted. So that's what the work that I've been working on this year, talking to other counties, talking to our FEMA contacts to kind of understand when is the right time to submit this plan, and also at the comfort level of us. And so that's, you know, what Leo and I have discussed. I think it's really important to have that plan to be quite detailed so that we know if we need to, when we need to enact it, we're ready to do so. So there's still work to be done there. But ultimately, in my conversations with emergency response, this is a plan that they would submit and manage with the support of highway, recycling, waste management, and the planning department. But that would go from them to Department of Homeland Security. And if that was then accepted by FEMA, that is how we would be able to be reimbursed if we needed to move debris in the case of an emergency. So some more work to be done there, but still something we're working on. Another interesting, these last two items are also from our resiliency and recovery plan. So the critical infrastructure was something that was outlined pretty detailed in that plan. I'm now taking a look at that critical infrastructure in line with our new FEMA flood maps and understanding within that inventory, where do we see issues and concerns, and what does it look like, for hospitals, police stations, cell towers, et cetera, that are critical to the entire county. What do we need to do to make sure we're going to be okay if and when that flooding happens? And so that's a part of a review that our department's doing there. And that last piece is in the same kind of vein, this economic vulnerability analysis. That was a big piece of that plan as well. And so, that plan was finished and accepted, but this is the work that we're doing to keep that plan moving and put into action. And so this is looking at, when we have some kind of natural event here in the county, what does our economic vulnerability look like? And so there's a stepped plan that we're working through there that was provided as a part of that finished plan. But more to come on both of those, all three of those.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions? Rich?
I guess I have a question and a comment. The first is the Tompkins County Hazard Mitigation Partners. Have they reported to TCOG?
I don't think they have reported to TCOG. I wouldn't say they have particular outcomes yet, but I think that's a good flag of a place for them to connect.
I would think that the representatives on TCOG would like to hear from this group.
Yeah.
The other one is just dredging. Oh my God. It's great that New York State has released Mitigate New York and that they're tracking risks. But this one is so obvious for so long, and the consequences of failure are so severe. I wish they hadn't used the money for Mitigate New York. I wish they just dredged.
Mitigated?
Just mitigated, yes. And yet here we sit. And, when the day comes when we get this severe storm event that comes down into the city, we're going to look pretty stupid. And so's New York, and so's the city, and there it is. So, a comment. I don't know what we can do about it, but boy, it's so obvious.
Have we heard anything about
Our understanding
any update?
is that the dredging is proceeding and that they are in the process right now of their environmental review of that project, led by the city and led by the DC. The DC's lead agency is my
That's
understanding.
news. When do they think they might actually put a shovel in the water?
I can only say that we received the environmental review documents. I don't believe it's stated. I can get back to you on that. There may have been some dates listed in there.
That would be great to hear some dates. Yeah, thank you.
Greg?
When you say you receive the documents, is this where the county gets a chance to review to see if there's anything objectionable in the secret documents provided? I see Katie just jumped on, so.
Yes. Hey, Katie.
Yeah, hi there. Sorry I'm not with you today. I brought a little COVID home from vacation with me. Didn't want to contaminate you all. I'm just looking at the seeker letter right now, and it's a agency coordination letter, so they're preparing the environmental documents. It's not, they're not ready for review quite yet. And no, there's no date on it.
Well, my big question is hoping you can join us on December 8th at noon, because hopefully you'll be better by then.
Oh, I sure hope so. Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for the clarity, Katie. That was, my apologies, that was a request for lead agency. That's the DEC stating and asking approval of other agencies for them to be lead agency.
Continuing comments, whining perhaps, but the conversation between the city and the New York State has gone on for years. The idea that they're just doing the initial scoping seems slow. But
Wouldn't this have been done when they put the dewatering facility together?
yeah, I mean, I guess I'm behind the curve, but why did they wait? You know, even if they're arguing about money and responsibility, this seems like it could have been done. And yet here we are. Oh, well.
My guess, Rich, on that is that they did do a previously accepted draft EIS. However, I think it seems like perhaps the scope of the work has changed significantly enough for them to have to redo it. That would be my take on it. But again, this is the city's project. They would be able to answer more questions than we can.
And one other question, and sorry to, do we have a statement of what the scope is?
Okay, well, I can tell you it says DEC is initiating the seeker for the currently proposed dredging project. Has construction and management of the sediment management facility was previously evaluated in the 2012 EIS. The review pursuant to seeker will focus specifically on the proposed Cayuga Inlet dredging.
Okay.
I'll contact the city manager and see if I can, because this has been asked about before, so I'll see if we can either get something via email or get somebody to show up at Peak, you know, to get some more information on this.
Thank you.
Anything else regarding this, Veronica?
I guess I have a comment and two questions. One comment, other than thank you for sharing, Abigail, I already forgot, but your team of folks from the municipalities, that's very exciting to see, like a living group ongoing, especially, I mean, as you said, like a plan can be a thing that sits on a shelf until it's needed, but at that point, I mean, I've heard from multiple sources, you don't want to be building all your relationships from scratch in the middle of an emergency. You want to have them already. So that is very cool. About the DEC stuff, I guess this might not be something you can answer, but I have the impression from not just the dredging thing, but various other sources that the DEC is not equipped to keep up with the workload that it has for itself. Maybe, like there seem to be lots of examples where some entity is waiting for the DEC to process something, waiting for the DEC to do something. But I was watching a public hearing about, now I can't remember. Harmful algal blooms that the state legislature was hosting, and that thing came up from a lot of people, like, well, like it would be helpful if we had more like quick turnaround from the DEC, but then there was a DEC representative who was asked like, oh, do you have all the resources you need? Do you have the staffing you need? And that person was like, yeah, I think we're fine. And you don't run the DEC at all, but like, obviously, but am I off base with this, or is this a dynamic you've seen, or how does workflow at the DEC impact our various local hazard mitigation and preparation things?
To the work that we've done directly, obviously can't speak for the DEC and their workflows, but to the work that we've done directly with the DEC regarding like the FEMA flood maps and that stuff, we've worked directly with folks from the Western Flood Hub. So there is a separate subset there, and they are, if Darby was here, she would agree, they are the unsung heroes. They show up to everything and they have the answer to somehow everything. They have volunteered to actually run a flood permit half-day training I'm attending with code officers across the county tomorrow to make sure that they understand what their requirements are so they don't put their municipalities in danger. So that's been really awesome. I think with any agency, there are requirements that are put on them to do a lot of work, and they do their best, those individuals, but I can't speak to the DEC as a whole.
Western Flood Hub, that's a new term I hadn't heard.
Yeah. I see Katie. I have one unrelated question too, but.
Yeah, I would just say, Veronica, that chronic understaffing at the DEC has been talked about for at least a decade. It's a tough nut to crack. And I also understand that the new state wetlands regulations that Darby's been and talked to you all about a couple of times is really causing even further backlog with their staff. So their staff is under a tremendous amount of pressures from different angles. And yeah, I think it's a real problem.
At the NISAC Fall Seminar, I went to a presentation about the new wetlands regulations, like led by a guy from the DEC who, and part of the presentation was him being like, we are doing the best we can, please be patient. Again, like other things, it sounds like the people working on it are doing great and the work is just a lot.
Yeah, I'd agree.
My other question is that the logo you have in your presentation looks really cool, and I don't know if I'd seen it before. Is it new?
Dominic made them for us. We have a few of them. I think we have a Green Fleet one. I'm missing which other one we have. But yeah, we have a few that he pulled together for us for some subsets of the work we do.
It looks great.
There's still time in the budget to authorize buttons or something like that.
Stickers?
Buttons and
For the
stickers.
pizza party, yes.
Yeah, for the pizza party.
No money in the budget.
For stickers.
We can make them
You can have
ourselves.
fun balance.
Forge the buttons ourselves.
What'd you say, Norma?
Wait, is that Target or?
Take it out of fund balance. Okay, any other questions for Abigail? All right, Abigail, thank you so much. Anything else from your department or from Katie that you had for us today?
No, thanks, Annie.
Great, and hope to see you on the 8th at noon. Amanda?
Sounds good.
I just hope your travels were amazing, Katie, and maybe if you're here on the 8th, I could quiz you on it all. I'd love to hear about it.
I'm thinking we could put up a slideshow.
Yeah,
We could cast some of your pictures if you have some ready.
Speech.
You can give a speech.
A speech.
Pizza and a speech. Sounds great.
Travelogue, Africa travelogue.
Well,
Okay. Let's see, moving on then to our next department. We have the Department of Recycling Materials Management. We have Leo Riley here, the director, and he's got several things for us. The first one is a capital summary, and that is on packet page 25. So is there anything you want to say about that, Leo?
Yeah, I guess the only thing I'll say is, we're still in planning design phase. We're going to hope to have RFP for construction out around February. Yeah, so we're just pecking away at the bid specs and design. That's for the landfill. I'm sorry, that's for the landfill leachate project.
Tanks,
Yeah.
okay. Any questions on that? Then we have the ACR, Average Commodity Report, on Average Commodity Revenue Report, packet page 27.
I know how much this committee looks forward to seeing this every quarter. So, yeah, we've been pretty successful, I think, reporting quarterly to the committee. And so our third quarter report or numbers, I guess if we're looking at the line graph, gives you an idea of what happened in the third quarter. July, it was still downward at $45 a ton. The commodity pricing dipped in August to $30 a ton. And then we did see a spike in September. That was probably driven by a higher volume commodity that doesn't get sold every month. And quite often that's what's referred to as UBC, which is aluminum cans. I did not have, well, actually, I got October's ACR on the way over here. and that's at $30 a ton. So we're not, we're going back down third quarter. So just to kind of sum this line graph up, our first quarter for the year averaged $64 a ton. Our second quarter for the year averaged $61 a ton. Third quarter averaged $43 a ton. Looking at the chart, just to remind everybody, we budgeted $95 a ton. We haven't really gotten close to that at any month. So I projected through September to come in at the end of the year at $56. And that was with the assumption the fourth quarter was at 55. So my projection is going to be a little lower if I was to do a redo right now. Total revenue budgeted was $800,000, and we're projecting probably around $350,000 for the year. So about $450,000 less than budgeted for revenue.
Can you say that again?
So as far as the budgeted total revenue, we'll be about $450,000 short.
So looking at that bottom right,
Yeah, so.
right when the original was projected was 807,000.
That's budgeted, not projected. That's
I'm sorry, budgeted,
yeah.
and now you're looking at a projected 350,000.
Yeah.
So there would be a shortfall of about 450,000.
Yes, yeah. That's bleak. But, you know, again, just monitoring month over month, we took some action to reduce some expenses. And if I was to throw out some projected numbers for the total budget, everything that we do over there, we have a budget of $9.8 million. Our revenue is looking at coming in $9.1 million. We have decreased our expenses for 2025 by about $570,000. Part of that was initiated. We cut some expenses, cut some costs. For instance, the Recycling Solid Waste Center, you'll remember earlier in the year I talked about renegotiating that contract extension. So we recognized about $150,000 savings in fees in 2025 through that renegotiation. Recycling Solid Waste Center, some of this is luck too. I guess in a year like this, I'll look at it as a positive thing, but our volumes are down as well. So for instance, the MSW, the garbage that comes into our facility, we're about 1,000 tons less than we budgeted for. So that reduces the revenue, but also reduces the expense as well. So that is, on the expense side, is right around $100,000 for those less tons that are coming in. That's the big one, but the volumes are down all around as well.
How do we make up for the budgeted loss in this department in 2025?
How do we make up for the loss?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess if you're saying you're coming in at 9.1 and you've got a $9.8 million budget and you saved about 500,000, there'd still, in my mind, be a couple $100,000 difference.
Yep.
Is that out of their reserve?
So in 2025, we budgeted the use of fund balance for $235,000. As we budgeted for 2026, we did not want to go that route. We don't want to depend on the fund balance to balance our budget. So that was one positive in 2026 that we didn't use it. But to answer your question, I mean, there's some other savings that we've seen. So you had the Recycling Solid Waste Center. We've got major contracts, the curbside collection contract, the hauling and disposal contract, our food scraps processing contract. Those added up to about just shy of $200,000 in savings. The drivers of that is always either volumes or CPI or inflation, where we may budget 4% and it comes in actual at 3%, so we see some savings there. There's also a couple contracts with fuel adjustments that we budget for, and I believe we had some savings just in fuel in those contracts. So, long story short, it looks as though we're going to be right around $100,000 under budget as far as including using the $235,000 out of our fund balance.
So you need to use another 100,000?
No.
Oh,
No, we'll probably only end up using a little over 100,000 out of that 200.
But you'll use less out of that fund than you thought you needed to.
Yeah, so, I suppose it's a good story budget-wise. Ultimately, we'll hover right around our budget, yeah. We did put off 2 part-time positions as well, and we'll start that process to hire those 2 part-time positions in 2026. So we held those 2 hirings through 2025. That was about 90,000. Yeah.
Any other question on ACRs? Okay, thank you, Leo. And then the next thing, you have a resolution, and this is packet page 29. This is, so why don't we get this on the floor first? This is a resolution establishing a unit charge for the 2026 solid waste annual fee ID 13694. Would someone like to put that on the floor? Rich, and seconded by Veronica. And would you like to walk us through this?
Sure. So this is done every year, whether we increase the annual fee or not. And 2026, we're increasing in our budget the annual fee by $3. So this resolution lays that out for the different classifications.
Any questions, or anybody need any more clarification on this? Greg?
Sorry, I feel
would you like to say something about universities?
No.
You raise it again this year?
Well, I'm trying to think how to phrase my words, so I apologize for the long pause. I have concern based on the reports, not about Leo, the department, the leadership, the staff, those things, but just about the economics of trash and recyclables, right? That's where my concern comes in. Not how you all are handling it, but just the economy that surrounds your department. And so I wonder if there's an opportunity, and I'm typically not a fan of this, but something's gotten into my water, maybe it's some PFAS or something, making me go all sorts of crazy when it comes to the budget this time of year. But I wonder, because we've had a use of fund balance, you've depleted your fund balance over the last couple of years a little bit through various activities, my recollection, not entirely, but is $3 enough? Would we be better off doing a $5 increase and putting some away? I don't know if there's an appetite, and my colleagues are laughing at me because I'm not the one that's normally pushing this stuff, but I I see a report like we projected 95 and it was actually 55, right? We projected 800,000, it was actually 300,000. Like the story each year doesn't get any better. I don't see how in the next 4 years with our federal landscape the way that it is, that it's going to get actually any better at that. So I don't know. I guess I raised the question, you know, I feel like a $5 increase is palatable, and I've argued in years that a $5 increase, there's no way that we could ever stomach that. So here I am trying to figure out what's the right thing to do and where's the right balance for your department's budget, and then what can our community bear. So I guess I would stop there and ask the question if 3 is enough.
Rich?
Greg, would you feel better if we published this in the newspaper of record?
Which you voted against.
We have one? Sorry.
Rita's behind you.
You got me on a good week.
This is a GO joke.
I think
We do need to end at 3, just want to let you guys know.
No, you have a point about the wild fluctuations, but I think trying to bring that kind of change in front of the full legislature this late in the process would be pretty hard. You know, I had mentioned that, well, you know, some sort of reserves to reduce the fluctuations, you know, to level it out year on year might be in order, but that's for a future legislature to do. I just don't know that we want to have that conversation now. But
Anda?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Rich. I guess my suggestion would be that, you know, we've had numerous years of challenging years and fluctuating market and all of that. And maybe this coming year, as you start to make your projections and look at your future budget, there is more discussion ahead of time about, well, what if we do need to increase it more substantially next year? You know, I think trying to do that right now, it would be hard. But, you know, maybe that's just a bigger conversation that the legislature or a couple of legislators are more involved in with you next year. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I like, so, you know, yes and no on the bad years. I mean, if you look at the chart, you know, you'll see where, you know, 2021, we budgeted 450,000 when we got 970,000. You know, 2022, I must have did the budgeting that year because it was right on. 2023, you know, a real downward loss in revenue. And 2024 is somewhat respectable. I mean, and a bad year again in 2025. So no crystal ball. But, you know, with that, I can say we monitor this month to month to month, starting when we get an invoice in January. You know, so we really work to manage our expenses. Yeah, I like to keep my positive attitude and keep my fingers crossed with revenues. And also, with the projections, we're projecting 20% fund balance at the end of this year. And we're supposed to be between 16 and 18%. So we're still, you know, fairly healthy with our fund balance.
Rich?
yeah, I am curious that we've heard talk about sort of reconstituting the recycling industry, commodities recovery business here in our country because of what's happened with closing of foreign sources. I'm curious, do you have anything to report there? Is that happening, or is it, because that could be some good news in the future, right?
I don't really have much to report onto it, but we have a meeting coming up with Casella, our processors here in December. They've got some huge MRFs in some other states, Massachusetts, and they're starting to dabble with the AI or the robotic type processing. Does that give us any more revenue from sale of materials? I mean, who knows? The theory is that the material is cleaner, less contaminants through that sorting process, lower costs for them as far as, workers' comp type issues. So something like that takes a little while to get to us. So I don't know what the outlook is there. I can tell you, landfill space is becoming more and more expensive, and in the future, it's just going to drive the diversion programs that we have, whether it's food scraps recycling, hopefully EPR makes some progress.
Environmental product responsibility.
Yep, sorry. Yes. So we're hoping that there's the manufacturers of that packaging is going to be paying for the processing and really reduce some of the burden on municipalities. That's big picture, broad picture. I wish I had some more specifics, but I'll try to. I am going to the NYSAR 3 conference in Cooperstown too on Wednesday.
NYSAR?
Yeah, New York State Recycling Association. And so we usually learn, about some of the newer practices, and the DEC is there doing a lot of presentations on up and coming initiatives and whatnot.
Staff.
If they have staffing.
No. I know for packaging, for instance, which we see on a consumer end, some of it has gotten a little better. The companies are taking some initiatives, and some of it is just getting much, much worse. So take any little box or something that you get something in or container and, make sure you're, taking it and just ripping it very carefully to see if it's lined with plastic. So last couple things I bought, the whole boxes were plastic lined, so that's trash. It's not recycling.
Yep.
So it's
Yeah.
really, I couldn't figure out a reason for these products that they're putting plastic on top of the cardboard.
Yeah. So with the EPR, it puts that expense back onto the manufacturer of these process, the packaging materials. So if anybody has the drive to change and standardize that packaging, eliminate those types of packaging to reduce the processing, they'll do it.
That'll happen right away.
They'll do it.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's really what has to happen. I think just lastly too, as far as the you mentioned the ACR reserve we haven't named it yet, but that is on our agenda to discuss, and I would expect we'll work to do something implementing that like in our 2027 budget. Just kind of guessing. But, again, I think we go into that with a number, whether it's $75 a ton, and then you got that delta. Anything we get in excess of what we budget goes into that fund, and then anything less we pull from that fund. And I think, that is the way we want to go. And it's easy to explain, it's easy to see, and yeah.
See, now I'm going to have to attend peak meetings into the future to see
It'll be really exciting.
this exciting development.
I just wanted to, when Leo and I were working on talking about this budget, we did talk about they're working on a multi-year budget, okay? So once that comes together, I think this committee should really consider, I don't know how many people will still be here, but should really consider a annual plan to bring,
Veronica.
to continue to build on that. Because I think there is a need to see this as an incremental increase over the next few years. They have increased their other fees, so some of those will help to mitigate the losses. And they are very, very good at seeing kind of that big picture and within the budget, not spending funds when they see it's not coming in. So I commend that department does a really good job of doing that. They're within about $200,000 a year to date actuals, so.
And so we don't have a.
200,000, I said $200.
We know what you meant. County math.
We knew
County
200.
math, that's right.
Be 2 million if we're in the city.
200K.
So is there any, I know you said they're working, or I know it's the task force almost, or a group working on the fees, a multi-year fee, but is there a set fee for next year that we have already?
That's what this resolution is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I meant for the year after. Or is this the end of 2026, the end of the, because we had several increments? I thought it was going up into the 90s.
That ended, I asked the same question of Leo, that hasn't been in effect since Barb left.
Yeah, Barb brought a plan, I think Jason was still here, that increased it, $5 or $10,
Right.
another $5 or whatever it was. But it never really happened.
Okay.
As with the airport, both enterprise funds, they have no control over what union negotiations do, so whatever, or
But we
market
do.
adjustments.
Right.
We make those decisions and they have to figure out how to pay for it. So with both enterprise funds, they're trying to figure out how to pay for these increases that they didn't ask for them, we just give them to them.
Greg?
It's kind of like unfunded state mandates, but at a local level. My concern still remains that, thankfully, Leo, you and your team are good stewards, right? And you've managed to cut several hundred thousands of dollars in places. I mean, that's remarkable. So, kudos to you for that. But are we hamstringing your department by forcing you to have to operate like that year after year, where you could be doing other forward-looking work that would allow you to not be as reactionary? I ask the question because anytime a department's able to cut that much or to be that flexible, to what cost? And I always think that there's a future cost to that level of flexibility. So that's why I raise the question and continue to raise the question. I would like this to not be on the consent agenda because I do think that this merits a wider conversation. I'll support this moving out of committee, but I really want to challenge to make sure that we're not doing something that's limiting your ability to do, I don't want to say better work, but more good work in your department.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate it. I think the industry that we're in, and my background in the industry, the private sector, it's not uncommon to have to be shifting gears as the months tick away. And that's kind of how I look at it. I think everything decision-wise has gone well for us with the renegotiation of the contract, but that's not available every year. So there's not going to be another renegotiation next year. That fixed us and helped us this year. So it's things like that. If I was to admit one thing that I wish I had accomplished this year was getting the code enforcement officer back in place. That was pushed off until next year, but we'll be ready to post that job description soon. There's been some issues with enforcement that we've been having a difficult time enforcing. Yeah, so.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Okay, anything else before we have this resolution on the floor? Okay, all those in favor? That passes unanimously, and Taylor has noted for this and the other one we asked about will be off of the consent agenda, and we'll talk about it when we have the committee reports. at the legislature meeting. And let's see, do we have any committee member reports? Okay, then I will call us adjourned at 2:41. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Annie.